Welcome back, folks. Time for another one. This one is industrial piping for all your 40k and industrial needs in the table realm. And this one's pretty easy. You're just going to take some PVC pipe. This is 3/4 of an inch PVC pipe, and you measure however many lengths of it you would like to cut. I've cut various lengths here in 4 inches, 6 inches, and 8 inches. I went to the local hardware store and decided to give myself a limit for this project. I decided that I was going to spend a tenner, and for 10 quid I got more PVC piping and more fixings than are here, than I think I will use for quite some time. However, it's a great investment. It's a great quick and easy build to do for a low budget. It's very simple with this, and once you've got all your cutting done, all you do is play around with your fixings and your lengths of pipe to decide what you want, what styles you want, how you like to set them up, how you want your pipes to look when they're on the table, and play around with this. Spend a few minutes doing this. It's best to take apart, put together some combinations, see all the options you've got available. If you need to use more fixings, use more fixings. If you need to cut more lengths of pipe, cut more lengths of pipe. If you don't like the lengths you've cut them up some more. It's all about playing around and deciding what you like most at this point. And stage 3, once you've finished deciding how you want all your pipes to look when you're playing around with your bits, you then get the glue out, start gluing them together. For this, if you like a nice clean finish of the glue job, I would use super glue or poly cement or some PVC plumbing fixture that you can buy and stick them all together. If you want a somewhat more welded and rough looking finish to your joins, I would suggest using hot glue for this, because when you add the hot glue and then press the pieces together, you will inevitably have some that seeps out around the edges and ends up filling in and looking a little more rough and gritty in the use. However, for this, I wanted some nice crisp finishes, so I went for the super glue. Also, I would suggest if you go down the super glue road or the PVC bonding agent plumbing glue, definitely open a window and maybe even have a fan running, because some of the fumes that come off of that stuff can be quite horrendous. Then once you get that done, just set everything aside and let that glue go off and dry, and once that's done, you can move on to the next stage. So, stage 4. Time for this one. Once you've got everything dried and you've decided on any other special pieces you're going to do, time to take out your sandpaper. This is a very important stage because it will do two things. One, it will help you bond the paint to the PVC, which is very difficult to get paint to stick to, in my experience. Always has been. Best solution I've found is to just sand everything down well. Give it a rough, textured finish. Doesn't need to be a nice soft sandpaper for this, it can be fairly rough. The other benefit that this has is there are usually some makers' names and brand names or sizes or general bits of mould lines and other mess on the PVC. And the best way to get rid of this is to just sand it away and rub it smooth so it looks like a big industrial piece of metal and a little bit less like a small piece of plumbing plastic that you've decided to use on your table, because camouflaging the everyday pieces we use makes them look all the better in the finish and in the final product once you've got them on the table. Stage 5, time to jump outside and get painting. With this one, it is a dedicated plastics primer I have, and from past experience, the best thing to do is to be as heavy-handed as you think you need to be to get the amount of coverage you need. And being heavy-handed in the long run helps better, because a thicker layer of paint you have as a primer on this PVC, the less likely it is to come off and the more likely you are to have a nicer finish when you get further down the line. In the end, if you're a little heavy-handed and it ends up a little splotchy and watching, you have some runs here and there that you can see. These aren't really the end of the world, because in the end you can paint them out and camouflage them away. By the time the piece is finished, you'll never see them under the other layers of paint and details you're going to be adding. And once that's done, just jump inside again and move on to the next stage. So now, stage 6, once we're all back inside and everything's dried up, I decided that a little bit of detailing wouldn't go amiss on these big bare pieces. So for this, I decided to take some bits of card or craft paper and a little bit of PVA glue, cut the paper into strips, and then once you have the small strips cut out, just lay them right down along the top on the lower areas of the pipe outside of the fixings, and it adds a nice little detail, a bit of a walkway or an inspection area perhaps, just a bit of detail to break the piece up on the table and add a little bit of interest to it. And just cut them to measure as need be there, doesn't need to be perfect. Any excess you have, you can trim off a little bit more, or you can just force down and fold in under the PVC if there's enough of a gap. And then once you get this done on all your pieces, just let that PVA dry, and then jump into the next stage. Stage 7, here we go. Once all that PVA is dried off and that card's nice and stuck down, next thing you need to do is take a slightly darker grey at this point and just slap all over a good heavy coat on top of that primer, just to give you that little bit extra layer of protection to any future use and chipping you might have. The lighter grey underneath, if it does chip through the paint later in life, it won't really matter, because it will just look a little more natural in chipping that you've exposed a layer or it's been painted and areas have fallen off in real life. And I think it's a nice little detail, even if you scratch it as you continue the end of the paint job. The layers of colours and paint and greys can show through later on, and it looks quite nice. Once you get this stage done on them all, jump into the next stage, and that's us nearly at the end now. Stage 8, time to get a much more neater brush for some neat work. Pick out those detailed strips you put on. In this case I've decided to just pick them out in a dark blue. I happen to have the tub already sitting at the side of the table, so I just decided to use the dark blue. Pick out all the detail strips all the way along the top, do them all, try and keep this as neat as possible, try and keep it off the pipe and just on the detailed strips, just to give the eye a little bit more details to see and stand out on any table you put them down on. And then once you get this stage done, one last stage to go, and then we're ready for some glamour shots right at the end with them on the table. So stage 9, very last part. Take some metallic paint, your favourite of choice. In this case I have just taken a silver, and use a big old makeup brush, and then just dry brush some metallic silver all over, just to highlight any edges, pick out any pieces, any areas of paint where it might be a little thicker or there might be a little bit of texture left, any of the old sanding work that may not have been too perfect in removing nameplates. This is the point where you will use it to pick out the detail and make it a final bit of the piece. This doesn't need to be a particularly neat dry brush, doesn't need to have a pattern to it, just give it a bash all over. And then after this, you'll have the glamour shots of it on the table. I hope you found this video inspirational and makes you want to join in and get some more crafting done and build some terrain yourselves. Thanks for coming in. As always guys, if you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any feedback or any other questions, feel free to put them down in the comments below. Thanks for coming folks, see you in the next one.